Hello and welcome to HRBC show called Let's Talk. So today we have Mrs. Kitty Bryant, and she is currently running for Portsmouth City Council. So, would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
I would love to, Nina. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to have the endorsement of the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. It was a wonderful pleasure to receive that endorsement. My name is Kitty Bryant, and I am running for Portsmouth City Council to strengthen our community through collaborative leadership. My husband Hunter and I chose Portsmouth about 15 years ago when we were looking to purchase our first house. And someone said, if you are looking to buy a house, you should look in Portsmouth. So we did, and immediately picked up on the buzz of Portsmouth, the energy here. We could tell there was something special about the city, and we were really happy to buy a house here, and we're now raising our family here. So we have 3 kids in Portsmouth Public Schools. 2 of our youngest are at Parkview Elementary, and our oldest just started at Churchland Middle School. So we've had a great experience with our public school system, and our teachers are fantastic. I am currently the director of children and family ministry at Trinity Episcopal Church, where I manage the children and family programming, events, lessons, and things that we do as a church. But my background is in education. I taught in Hampton City Schools for several years. I was a high school social studies teacher. So my work as a social studies teacher, and also I worked as a newspaper reporter when I was first out of college. Both of those jobs really tuned me into the power of local government and the need for strong leadership in local government, which I think sometimes is overlooked in light of presidential elections, state elections. So I'm very excited to be entering the race at the local level, where I think there's a lot of work to be done, and we can really make some good headway.
Okay, so I got a few questions for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. First question. Your question says you would like to strengthen communities and provide safe opportunities for families to grow. How would you accomplish this?
Absolutely. So, yes, I'm sure, hopefully, at this point, most people know that my campaign sort of catchphrase is to strengthen our community through collaborative leadership. And what I really mean by that is I am a people person. I have loved the campaign process because it has put me in touch with people all over the city. And our team has worked really hard to crisscross the city and get into every community. And I know from my experience volunteering and from this campaign that we have fantastic people in Portsmouth in every piece and pocket and neighborhood that are doing great things. And it's my goal as a councilwoman to bring those people together in new ways, to link them in new ways, to really kind of take the work that they're doing and amplify it so that we can become even stronger as a whole city, and not stay in our neighborhoods and our pockets quite so much. I mean, all of that is excellent work also, but when we come together truly as a city, we can do even more and tackle some of the harder issues. I think we can all agree that a healthy city is one that supports families, because children coming up are the future of this city. We certainly want to address programming for all of our residents, but when you have a city that is welcoming to families, you have a city that is going to continue to grow and evolve and change. And so, some of the things that I'm proud of so far in my work, service work with the city, an example of that is as the director of children and family ministry at Trinity, we had a need for nursery workers to staff our smallest classroom, our 0 to 4-year-old classroom. And so I reached out to the public school system, and Manor High School's Career and Technical Education Department has an early childhood ed program. And we've partnered with them over the last, this is our 4th year, to bring upcoming teachers from Manor High School to Trinity to work with our youngest, but also now have moved on to work with our middle children and youth. They get teacher training and pay from Trinity, but they also get credit toward their high school diplomas through the CTE program. So it's those kinds of connections that I enjoy bringing forward. And it's those kinds of creative programs that I think we can really build on to make Portsmouth a great place to raise a family. I would love to see our school buildings opened as rec centers more frequently. When it's 100 degrees out, you don't want to play outside unless you're swimming in a pool. So let's use those spaces that are already available to us to get kids to come together in safe places. I would also love to see more what we call third spaces for teenagers and young adults, a place that's not home, that's not school, but we know that children, particularly adolescents and teens, young adults, need safe places where they can grow socially, emotionally, and make connections with peers. And so programs that address their needs are really, really important also. And I think we have a lot of opportunity to be creative there. One program that I was introduced to through the campaign process, someone I was talking to mentioned a program in New York City called The Door, which if you have a chance to Google it, Google it. It's a very cool idea that started in the 1970s in New York City, where they saw a need for youth services. Took an old, I believe it was a department store, and converted it into a place where teens could come in and young adults could come in, and volunteers would assist with tutoring, music lessons, creative writing, personal health, hygiene, any kind of mentorship or services that they needed. And they could sort of hang out there and be in a safe place, but address all of those things that teenagers need a little bit of help with. And it often needs to come from somebody other than their family. And so trusted adults are really important for that.
So, let's see. You got a bunch of Facebook questions, but I don't think I'm gonna ask them all. But here's one: how important is improving Black maternal options in Portland?
Okay, that's a really specific question and a really important one. We are definitely in a space where we need more services, healthcare services. And as a woman, I definitely understand the need for women's health services in particular. I think one of the best things that we can do is draw attention to the need for services like these, and provide spaces where we can. So at Trinity, actually, we recently hosted the mobile mammogram unit that comes by, that I believe it's Centera that comes by and offers mobile mammograms for people in the community, because we don't offer that. We don't have a place for that service here in Portsmouth, and we want to make sure that women are getting out there. I know that the dangers that Black women face in receiving healthcare while pregnant are significant and they're disproportionate. And so a lot of, I think, what we can do is communicate and really communicate as a city on what the needs are of our residents, and get information out to folks as much as we can. I have a background, I have a degree in communication from my undergrad is at Rutgers University. And I often say you cannot over communicate. And if that's something that residents are looking for, then we can certainly communicate services to them and information to them.
Okay. All right. My next question. All right. What are your thoughts about preventing tow trucks from towing our citizens' cars for not having updated registration in our city?
Yeah, I know that this recently came up. I was at a city council meeting several weeks ago where I know that this was a buzz at city council. And so it's interesting to think about. I my understanding is that it was seeming like tow companies were preying on citizens. I think it was at the Walmart. Is that right, Nina? Or was that was it at?
Yeah, it was at Walmart. And then they also do, I know these are private, but apartment buildings. They also
Okay.
work with apartment buildings. And they
Yeah.
tow people whose registration isn't
I think this is a good example of finding balance. And I think a lot of what our city has been missing over the last 4 years as we've turned over city managers and turned over police chiefs is it feels like there's just this instability that is pervasive across the city. And this is a good example of we certainly don't want companies preying on citizens, especially if registration is a difficult task for some people in our community. But we also want to recognize that vehicle ownership is a responsibility. And as a vehicle owner, you have a responsibility to maintain a safe and registered car. So I think something like recognizing that there needs to be grace periods for something like registration. We can't all pop out right away and maybe get it fixed due to extenuating circumstances. But as a car owner, you do have a responsibility to be in good standing. So I think this comes down to balancing talking to the city manager, talking to police, understanding what the problem is, and really doing a better job of communicating what our needs are and um, being fair and being balanced between those two options.
So, one of the problems, what are your thoughts about suggesting to our state legislators while they're trying to figure out the toll problem, stopping them from preventing our citizens from renewing their registration because of tolls, because their process is for disputing a toll? It's kind of non-existent. If they feel like it, they will. If they don't, they don't. So I think it's unfair to hold somebody's registration for a process that isn't very fair. To
So I have the good fortune of having a friend of mine works for the Elizabeth River Tolls, and we talked about this issue in that tolls is a campaign topic that comes up frequently. So I wanted to have a good understanding of where we stand with the tolls. And so yes, if you do not pay the toll two or more times and you go for vehicle renewal, registration renewal, your registration renewal can be denied. So toll operators across the state can um, put forward to the DMV that your registration will not be renewed if you haven't paid your tolls. And so the reason for that is it's a tool for that bill to get paid. So without that tool there's no way to collect the tolls that are going unpaid. Um, and I can understand that that would be frustrating to people struggling to meet the demands of the tolls. Um, the city council in Portsmouth has little control over the tolls in that it's a state issue, and it's driven by state lawmakers. But what we can do at the local level is to continue to listen to residents' concerns about the tolls, understand the impacts that it's having on our residents and our businesses, and to continue to encourage state lawmakers to push for programs that are going to help people in Portsmouth um, with toll relief. And the good news is that we have programs in place for toll relief. I get the sense that maybe people aren't aware of quite how extensive it is. Um, it's a program that allows for residents in any area that qualify for toll relief to pay a $1 toll rather than the which is a 50% break from the payment you would normally make. There are plans in place next year to further toll relief. Our state lawmakers have done a really good job of pushing this forward and putting $70 million in the state budget for toll relief that will allow people making under $50,000 to apply for toll relief that would relieve them from paying tolls, which means the tolls would be free. So while the registration issue I can understand would be frustrating, I think the action that we're better able to take is creating more opportunities for toll relief. And as a city council person, because we can't push that budget to the state, but as a Portsmouth city council person, what we can do is stay in close contact with our state legislatures, continue to tell them what our needs are of our citizens, and continue to push for toll relief programs for people that need to commute, and it's a price that they struggle to pay. um I think it's also important to remember that tolling comes from not just the Elizabeth River toll anymore, it comes from other places too. And so our job in Portsmouth is to focus on what we can accomplish here at the Elizabeth River toll and keep pushing for those toll relief programs for residents. And not only pushing for the programs, but helping people understand that they exist and how to qualify for them, how to do the paperwork for how to find the link to the website so that you can fill out the form, because a lot of times people aren't sitting around Googling tolls and how to get toll. I mean, that's some paperwork that needs to be done, and it can be cumbersome. And so even programs at the local level to bring some people out and say, hey, do you qualify for toll relief? Let's help you find out, and let's help you fill out the paperwork to do that, because paperwork can be burdensome and can be confusing. And if we can help people with that, then that's a great service we can provide our citizens.
All right. What do you see as your role on council?
My role on council, if elected, I really, really hope to establish this tone of collaborative leadership. And that's not me saying some buzzword because it sounds, I really think that collaboration is so essential, because the council is made up of 7 people. No one person can accomplish a goal. The council needs to work together. And what we've heard from campaigning over the last several months is that people are really looking for leaders who are going to work to better the city and do it in a way that reflects our values. So we're people that do great work and care about our kids and are working hard to solve public safety issues that are very, very complicated. And we need leaders who are going to stand up and represent those values in a way that is professional and respectful, and prepared. So coming to the table prepared to engage in conversations, compromise, build off of each other, have a relationship that is meaningful and and really going to be creative in solving problems. I also want to be a voice for people across the city. I think one of the things about Portsmouth not having a ward system for voting is that when you're campaigning for an office, you're campaigning across the entire city. And we have made it our campaign purpose to go into as many communities as we can, and to really reach out to folks across the city. And it's so wonderfully reassuring to know that we all want the same things. We all want safer communities. We all want lower taxes. We all want services that our taxes pay for, um, infrastructure, things like that. We all want good schools. And so being a voice for everyone is really important to me. And that comes from really continuing to engage. So, not stopping after the campaign is over, but going to civic league meetings, going to public events, going into the schools, and continuing to listen to people, so that we really can make pragmatic decisions. Another role that I want to take on as a council person is we've lost a lot of ground over the last 4 years when we've turned over city managers and police chiefs. We need to have leadership in the city from the public safety end, from the management end, from the council end, that is going to make up the ground that we've lost in terms of making pragmatic decisions, and advancing us forward. So we've got leaders in place. And now it's time to add the council members into place. 3 new council members that will hopefully really drive the council end to meet the mayor, the chief, and the city manager where they are. So that's what I hope to accomplish. That's what I see my role as if elected.
Okay, you got a couple more Facebook. Should Portsmouth have a award system?
Interesting follow-up question. So what I have learned from campaigning is, and I will say that again, I do really appreciate that not having a ward system has brought me into contact with all of our city's residents. The flip side of that is that it's a hard job. Campaigning for a citywide council race or school board race or mayoral race it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time, energy, money to do all of that. So the benefit to a ward system would be having it on a smaller scale, running your campaign on a smaller scale so that you can focus on the needs of one particular part of the city. So there are pros and cons to it. For me personally, where I'm standing right now, again, I appreciate the fact that we are at-large candidates because of the value, I think, and especially the state of our city right now, where we are really looking to get on a track together collaboratively. All of the candidates running for all of the offices are really brought into contact with the problems across the entire city. So I do think that that is a benefit.
Okay. So that was a no to the award system.
Yeah, I mean, I think with anything, I wouldn't say no without further talking to some folks. I'd be obviously interested in conversation. Try and paint the other picture for me. Absolutely. But I will say from where I'm standing right now, I've appreciated it not being a ward system.
Okay. All right. You got another question. Since Norfolk is breaking ground on their new casino that has a lovely hotel, do you have any reluctance or regret about the future of Rivers Casino?
That's an interesting question, and it really is something that we need to think about with Norfolk developing a casino right across the way. I think no matter where you stand on the casino, whether you were for it or against it, it is here. It is bringing revenue and jobs to the city. It's anticipated that we'll have about $15-16 million in revenue next year for the city that we can put toward things like tax relief and schools and our regional partnership programs and some smaller needs also. I think that we will need to continue to kind of collaborate regionally, see how we can. I think it would be fantastic if we had more of a back and forth with Norfolk. And that said, that connects to our waterfront redevelopment and our innovation district. We're different from Norfolk. A good friend of mine years ago described Portsmouth as sort of the Brooklyn to Norfolk, that we have our own vibe and our own energy here. And we don't want to be Norfolk. We want to be different from Norfolk. So we need to work on communicating our presence, our amenities, our restaurants and businesses that are uniquely Portsmouth, and draw people here. So the casino being its own brand and its own entity here is an opportunity for that. And so is driving new business to our innovation district, which will be coming along very soon here. And then we have this fantastic opportunity to develop our waterfront. So with those 3 spaces, we have a lot of opportunity here. And I think we just need to continue to build on that. But we certainly have room to grow and learn and adapt. And that's one of the things I like about Portsmouth is it's got a lot of opportunity for work and development, and we have the opportunity here to be creative and thoughtful in doing all of that.
All right. So affordable housing seems to be a big problem in this area. How would you help with that?
Yeah, that's so interesting that you asked that. The Virginia Pilot actually ran an article today about affordable housing. So if anybody's looking to read up some more about it, it's a pretty comprehensive article that really goes over some of the widespread affordable housing issues like cost of construction and supply and demand. Zoning is a big part of the conversation when we talk about affordable housing, and that's something that can be accomplished at the local level. Um, how can we make zoning more appropriate for housing, more approachable for developers, so that we can build. Um, we certainly need to be aware of what the needs are of our city. And we certainly can be thoughtful about how we look at zoning and what kinds of things we're looking to build. With development anticipated in the Innovation District and the waterfront, I like ideas like asking developers to allot a certain number of units for, moderately income, low income housing, affordable housing that goes in partnership with other housing that's being built in these spaces. So um, that's one option. I did recently sit down with Miss Elisa Winston at the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority and had a really interesting conversation with her about our supply of assisted housing, and where we stand with that, and what programs the PRHA is doing to help with housing also. And there are opportunities there. She's taking a very proactive approach to housing options there. And when asked specifically, what can someone on city council do to help, one of her takeaways was appoint commissioners who are thoughtful and prepared and really willing to do the work on examining what our housing needs are, assisted housing needs are. Um, and that's a really great point across the board for Portsmouth, that a lot of work happens at that commissioner level. So planning commission, zoning commission, housing, all of that. It's a wonderful way for people who want to get involved to make decisions that are meaningful for our city. And as a councilwoman, it's a way to really make sure that we're appointing people that are going to be prepared, make pragmatic decisions, but also collaborate and really come to the table with that approach of um, wanting to build relationships, wanting to listen to others, bringing their perspective, but valuing other people's perspective. So I think certainly affordable housing it's a problem nationwide, and we can certainly do our part. And really, it comes down to having conversations and being prepared to make decisions that are going to benefit our citizens.
All right. So people are concerned about all the shootings that are going on in our city, like every day, I feel like. Yes, we know the council isn't the police department, but what policies do you think could help with this problem?
Yeah, this is so important, especially right now. It feels very urgent. And really, it's one of the reasons that drove me to the council race, because my husband Hunter and I, we're raising our family here, and it's we know we live in a city and there are challenges that cities will always have, but in the last year it has felt like we have to be a little bit more thoughtful about what we tell our kids when they're out walking around and hanging out with friends, and they want to have the freedom to roam around a little bit. And we've had to really think about it a little bit more in the last year, because it is it's scary. The violent crime is a scary thing, and I hope to bring, if I can take the most basic step in coming to council, is bring the perspective of a mom raising kids in the city, and also what it feels like to be a woman and walking around the city and feeling like public safety needs are not being met. So all that aside, we have taken some steps here in the last few days. I am president of the Old Town Civic League. And as I'm sure you and your viewers know that in the last week and a half, we've had several shootings downtown. One was a woman who was asleep in her bed when a stray bullet got to her and she ended up in the hospital. And it's just tragic to think that you can't even be asleep in your bed and feel safe. So with that rise, we at our last Civic League meeting had the police chief and Mayor Shannon Glover come and speak, and they were very quick to respond and talk to our members. And we then took the next step of meeting with members of the Old Town Business Association and bringing our two boards together to mobilize before tonight's city council meeting. So tonight at city council, we have plans in place for residents and business owners to come to council and really press the need for patrols downtown and really make that a priority. And so I hope that shows that coming together and speaking up is the first step. It's necessary. We need to stand up and say, this is unacceptable. We're not going to tolerate this in our community. And the first step is making that presence known and then asking leaders, what will you do? Here are some things we'd like to see. What can we do from here? And certainly this is not a downtown only issue. So I say that because I'm coming from the perspective of someone who has worked with this in the last 2 weeks. But I know that crime is an issue that concerns all communities across our city. And in working to get to know that better, I made it a priority of my campaign to do a ride along with one of our Portsmouth police officers. Had a wonderful experience with Officer Brown, who allowed me to ride with him all across his beat and see what he sees on a daily basis. And it was very eye-opening. And it really showed me how hard our police officers work to keep us safe, keep people in the community safe, to keep themselves safe, and to process a lot of information at one time about where they need to be and who is where and what's happening. When I asked Officer Brown, what do you need to do your job better so that we can be a safer city? His reply was very honestly, we need more police officers. And I think everybody knows that. We need police officers to be in crime hotspots. We need to have more public safety officers available to us. And it's not that we're not trying. We are trying to make that happen. I would argue that with a lack of stability in our city leadership, management, and police chief over the last several years, we have a reputation for not holding on to people for very long. And I mean, that begs the question, why would you want to come and work here if there's no stability here? So with our new city manager in place, who I am very eager to support, with our police chief in place, who I'm also very eager to support. He is so hardworking and really honest about what our needs are. I want to see that council piece brought into alignment with the manager, with the police chief, so that we can steady the course, establish that we are a city to be respected. We're a city of good people who have good ideas and are willing to elect good leaders to bring those ideas forward so that we can be creative and hire the people that we need to keep us safe. It's there's so much more to it than that. The public safety issue is very complex. And I have written about it a little bit on my website. If anybody wants to read more, I won't go on and on, but I do think a big part of it is youth. And as someone who has experience working with adolescents, a licensed teacher in the state of Virginia to work with high school and middle school students, understanding child development and the need for spaces that keep our young people engaged, learning, busy, part of our workforce as they become age appropriate for that is so important. And I will end by tying it into our job force, or excuse me, our jobs and workforce development, that if we can really track our students to go into these high paying maritime jobs that we have in our region, we are so fortunate to have this natural resource around us where we have the maritime industry and wonderful paying jobs. If we're really thoughtful about developing youth programming that becomes then workforce development and getting kids tracked into these jobs, then we raise so much for our city, raise our kids up. They're making great incomes. They're doing great work. They're supporting our overall industry, and they're safe. And then they start raising safer families, and the cycle can hopefully break, and we can elevate so much here in Portsmouth.
All right, got another Facebook question. Collective bargaining was approved for firefighters and Portsmouth. Should it be approved for all Portsmouth City employees?
Yeah, collective bargaining is an interesting issue. I get the sense that it came up when it did for a lot of reasons, but again, we were in a period of great instability here, not knowing who our manager was going to be and what was going to happen next. And so anything that supports better communication, I think is a great idea. I can understand the need to want to make sure that your job is secure and that your needs are being heard, and all of that would hopefully come from collective bargaining. The tricky point is that we're a city with a lot of needs, and I think it would be a matter of finding balance of, how do we fit that into our other needs. And so can we budget for that? Can we afford that? Do we have processes in place? So I would certainly be open to looking at any proposal or suggestion or prospect, and really taking a look at it and talking to other trusted people that have information, other people on council that have gone through that process already, and really kind of weighing the pros and cons and then seeing where we stand. Because ultimately what we are doing as council people is reflecting and voicing the desires of our citizens. So that became very apparent actually in the city park conversation that happened last week. Is we look at where are we going with this park and what do our residents want? What are people looking for? So same thing with collective bargaining. What are our needs? What are we capable of? And what do our citizens want? What conversations are they having that I can help represent to the rest of the council, to other leadership?
And this is gonna be my last Facebook question.
Okay.
So our properties have gone up in value. Do you think it is all right to being on top of our properties going up in value, which means our real estate tax has gone up? Think it's okay to raise property tax, real estate tax. I'm sorry, real estate tax.
Real estate.
So
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
It seems like every year somebody's like, oh, let's go up 3 cents. But if we're already going up because your value of your property is going up, you've already reached your little 3 cents.
Okay. So yeah, I think what the question is, how do we tackle tax increases and assessment increase, this rise in taxes? And I think a big part of it is we all feel like we're paying all of these taxes, this money, and we're not getting services for it. And a good example of that is something like infrastructure needs across the city. So you leave your house to commute to work in the morning and you're going across the Churchland Bridge and you're like, why is this bridge still under construction? Or down here on Court Street, you're trying to drive to the Naval Hospital and you can't get down Court Street because it's been under construction. It's now on its fourth year. Or maybe it's stormwater in your neighborhood or damaged drain pipes or orange cones littered everywhere. We have all these day-to-day needs, and if we're paying these taxes, why are these needs not being met? And so that again comes back to supporting the new city manager who's really running the day-to-day operations of the city and the departments within the city, and doing our piece on council to be smart in examining what our citizens' needs are, what the budget needs are. But ultimately, what we want to accomplish is creating new revenue sources. So with development, with new revenue, the casino is an example of that, but we certainly need more. We need to bring in more revenue streams so that we can offset tax concerns. So what I would love to see happen in the next 4 years is moving that innovation district forward, which is it's a tremendous part of our city, that several block stretch that is currently just completely derelict and vacant. There's so much opportunity there. And the best thing about the innovation district is there is so much opportunity there to do some really creative, very uniquely Portsmouth things and be innovative. And that will be a draw to other people in the region, but also really showcase what we are as a city, who we are as a city, and what we're able to accomplish. Linking that through High Street down to the waterfront where we have beautiful space to be redeveloped, and a ton of opportunity there. If we get the right leadership in place, and if we elect wisely, choose and vote wisely this fall, we can make all of that happen. It's possible to really move forward, come out of this kind of slow stalemate that we've been in for the last few years, without proper city management, and really support our new manager and move forward. So really the best way I think to address taxes is to create economic opportunities that are going to bring in new revenue. And then, of course, make sure that our services are being delivered. We've had this lack of operational management because we have not had a manager that has stayed for very long. So with Mr. Carter, we have this opportunity to really start, and we're seeing that. We are seeing that from him. It takes time to establish relationships, but we're very hopeful that with a council in place that will support him, we can really start seeing some day-to-day things improve.
And my last question, if elected, what are your top 3 things you would hope to accomplish?
Okay, my top 3 things. Obviously, number 1 is collaborative leadership. I will say it again and again and again. Yeah, that is absolutely the first step. So, step 1, work together. Represent people the way they deserve to be represented. I am here to represent all people across the entire city and do it in a way that I am coming to represent you prepared, professionally, respectfully, listening to you, engaging with you. So collaborate means with citizens, but collaborate means also with other council people, with the mayor, with the city mayor, everybody across the whole city. We need to respect each other and we need to talk to each other. Relationships cannot be underestimated. I am a people person. I look to build relationships. I enjoy building relationships. And so much good comes from that. As your network grows, I'm not going to know everything on city council the day I'm elected. And the problems that city council faces are always going to change. It's a dynamic situation, constantly changing. And so, really, building relationships and being willing to work with people is the only way to do the job effectively. I also hope to, so number two, I hope to bring a new perspective in all of our city's history, but really only in the last 100 years when women could be elected to city council. There have only ever been 5 women on Portsmouth City Council. And one of my earliest conversations about running for council revolved around that point. It was 2023, and I thought, why is there only one woman on our city council? That just seems so unusual. When you look at Norfolk, when you looked at Chesapeake, they were a lot more equal balanced. And I think that's really important because women think differently. I'm a mom. I am in my mid 40s. I am coming from a teacher background. I am not from Portsmouth. I chose Portsmouth, and I see Portsmouth, I think, in a different way than some of the people who were raised here. Certainly, being from Portsmouth is a valuable perspective on city council. Absolutely. But what I hope to bring is the perspective of somebody different that chose to live here, that is raising a family here, that values communication as my professional background, education as my professional background. I would never tell somebody to vote for me because I'm a woman, but I do think that having smart, prepared, qualified women is important to consider when you're electing people to council. So that's number 2. We'll call that bringing a new perspective. So collaborative leadership, providing a new perspective. And really number 3, I think what I would like to accomplish when elected to city council is to continue engaging with people. First of all, I have loved campaigning because it's a lot of fun and you get to meet a ton of people who are very encouraging, very warm. I have been infinitely surprised by the number of people who have thanked me or added me to their prayer list. People really, really can show you great level of care when you return that to them. And I will absolutely look forward to continuing to engage with people at that level. I love a school. I love a civic league meeting. I love a Parks and Rec event. I love going out to these things and talking to people. And there's a lot to be learned in those spaces. And that is really the job of a council person, is to be out in those spaces, listening to people, learning from them, gathering their ideas, preparing those ideas to bring before the entire city council, and building off of them, and then communicating back to people on the other side. Here's what we did, or here's the program we have, or here's a policy we're considering, and keeping those lines of communication open. I think we have a huge opportunity in Portsmouth to communicate better with our residents. We do a good job in a lot of areas in terms of communication, but we can always do better. You cannot over communicate, and letting people know all of the great things that we are doing and all of the great things that we will do is really important. And it also helps us with that piece where you say, oh, you're from Portsmouth. And we can finally say, yes, we're from Portsmouth, because we all know how special Portsmouth is. It's other people that don't know. And it's time that we turn that around. It's time that we control that narrative and really let people know, not only are we from here, but we're proud to be from here. And here are the reasons why. And we're going to get a handle on that. And we're going to flip that around for sure. So those are my 3 goals when elected.
So those are all the questions that I had. Is there anything else you would like to tell the people?
Well, I would like everybody to know that when you see me on the ballot, My name is Catherine W. Kitty Bryant. So please look for the kitty. But I would appreciate everyone's consideration. Please, please, please visit my campaign website, which is kittyforcouncil.com, because there's a ton of information there. I think I mentioned earlier that I, in a former life, was a newspaper reporter. And so I love to write. It's something I enjoy doing. So I have added a feature to the website called my column. And I've touched on a lot of issues that have come up over the campaign trail, things people have raised, issues people have raised, and I've written about them from sort of a column perspective, what my ideas are, what are ideas that I've heard along the way. So if you want to learn more about me and ideas that I have for the city, you can find a lot of information at kittyforcouncil.com. And I just really want to thank so many people for all of their support, including the Hampton Roads Black Caucus, and you, Nina, for really embracing the idea that city council needs new leadership, and we have an opportunity here to really do great work. And I really, really look forward to being a part of that. So that's me.
Well, thank you for coming to the show. And that is all that we have.
Well, thank you. I will certainly share this with all of our followers and appreciate the time very, very much.
Thanks.